Okay, Márín, you're very welcome, and it's good to see you, and a happy new year to you.
The
And
same to you.
it's nice to have you here with us today, Márín. So, Márín just said maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, and just to tell us a little, especially maybe your younger years and so on.
Okay, I grew up about a mile outside the town of Ballinrobe in South Mayo. I was the fifth of seven children. My parents met and married in New York. They had three children there, came back to Ireland, and there were four more of us. The eldest two went back to New York quite young in life, and they helped to rear us really. My father was a farmer now, he was a small farmer, and we'll say we didn't have a lot of cattle, but everything we ate was what he grew. And so we were kept very busy after school and during summer holidays, out, helping, weeding and saving hay in the bog, not only for ourselves, might I add, but for the neighbours as well. We were kind of, my father, you see, he was a small farmer, he didn't have a machinery, and so his neighbours would help him with machinery, and he would help them by giving us over to them, kind of to help out when they needed turf, whatever it was, or hay saved or things like that. I went to school to the Sisters of Mercy in Ballinrobe, and on the whole I loved my school days. If we ever got punished at school, we learned not to tell at home, because all we got was you must have deserved it, or you didn't get half enough. So we learned not to be telling. I did 2 years in secondary school there, and I often think, looking back, I would have loved maybe to have finished out there, but I got a scholarship to a boarding school, Mhurchú, which was it was a school especially for to prepare. There were preparatory colleges for boys as well, but to prepare people to become primary school teachers. So I did 4 years there, loved that as well. That was Mhurchú. I loved Mhurchú, and I loved the teachers there, mostly. And then I was about to go into my Leaving Cert year. I had never ever considered being a sister, never ever. And until maybe the August before Leaving Cert, this nun was home from America next door. She was visiting, and she wanted to go back to where she had been brought up, and she wanted to see the nuns there. So to make a long story short, I went with them for the spin, because we didn't have a car. It was great to get out. And as I met the sisters there, and I suppose it got me thinking for the first time. I said, but I had the whole. So I think really by my Christmas of my Leaving Cert year, I had decided that I was going to go for religious life.
Oh, very good, very good. And then that whole journey, then let's say, the journey, I suppose, novitiate and all that journey of religious life, maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that now, Márín, at that stage. That's the next stage of our life. We'll say whatever you want to say.
Looking back, I suppose, I don't know how to describe it respectfully, because looking from today's perspective, and what, like, my beliefs today, and what we had to do, there was a lot of, it was quite monotonous, and looking back, one would wonder what it was all about. But okay, I went through it, and with others, and there were maybe at one stage maybe 15 or 16 of us in the novitiate together in Galway, and it was lovely. Like, we had a good time because there's a crowd of us. Then I had hoped to be a primary school teacher. I had the necessary qualifications before I joined, but they needed a science teacher. And that's where my life took a different turn, because really I wasn't a bit scientific. So I went and did my science training in Galway. We were quite close to the university there, but I was never very good at it. I wasn't. And then after I did teach for a year or so, after my university years, in a year or two in Galway, and then I was transferred to Spiddal. Now my heart was broken. I loved Galway, loved Galway City, loved the school, but I wasn't a month in Spiddal until I realised how lucky I was. There was a wonderful woman there. She had trained herself before she joined the nuns, and she was a rock of common sense, and let's say on a lovely evening,
Yeah.
you know, she'd say, what would we be doing sitting in saying prayers this evening? Go on off down to the sea there and stay them anytime you want to. And that was really, there were 4 of us living together. And really since then, I have never, up until now, I have never lived with more than 4 sisters.
Okay.
So that's, so as for the religious aspect of it, like we were saying all our prayers in Latin. Now, as it happened, I love Latin. I was good at Latin. But I was thinking of people in the group who had never done Latin in their lives. And did it make any sense for them to be rhyming off Latin?
Yeah.
You know, I just couldn't see the sense of that. And I was questioning things, even faith things at that stage. But I think I questioned the Immaculate Conception once. Or it was, we were being urged to be like Mary. And then all I said, how could we be like her if she was conceived without original sin and we had original sin? And the whatever nun I asked, she said, now are you trying to find fault with Our Lady? So that was the end of my question. I learned to keep my mouth shut after that. Now when Vatican II came, I suppose there was an air of excitement, you know, but at first it was only manifested, you know, the only changes we saw was in our dress and maybe in our way of living a bit. And there was nothing happened for a good many years. Of course, now we know that really it wasn't followed through at all.
Not at all. A lot of it,
Yeah, a lot of it wasn't followed through.
Only now, maybe, when people have to,
Yes.
you know, things have been brought in. But I suppose they did change the Latin into English. I suppose that was one of the dramatic ones.
And I suppose it was. I loved music now, and I loved church music. I've been in a church choir since I was in 2nd class at school, and I loved it. But it was lovely to be able to sing in English, as you say. Now then, I was teaching science in Spiddle. And we were very fortunate because the school was practically on the seashore.
That was lovely,
And so I was able to bring the children down and learned every species there on the seashore. We were beside Lord Killanen's woods. And I used to write to him or to whoever was in residence at the time to ask could I bring the children there, we'll say come springtime, to learn all the plants. So I loved nature, but I suppose in a way, and I love now nature when I was growing up as well. Like my father was an ordinary farmer, but you know, I remember him, you know, looking at primroses, bringing us to see the first primrose and saying, he said, I know it's written someplace in the Bible, not even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed as one of these. So I remember,
is in the Bible.
it is, but I remembered that. And I loved from that point of view, we were brought out for walks like picking nuts, picking blackberries, so picking mushrooms on summer mornings. So it's close to nature, and because of the work outside, in the bog, in the hay fields, the cornfields. But so I was we were close to nature in Spiddle. But it was kind of in an academic way, I suppose, in a way. Now, Spiddle is beautifully situated, you know, and with the sea right outside the door and rivers. And but then I often think that when I left Spiddle then, that was one phase of my life over. And I came into Galway because I was asked to be on a team in the diocese because adult religious education was becoming very much the in thing at the time. You know, you had those 2-year courses going all over the country, and the late Bishop Eamon Casey wanted it for his diocese, so he asked some of us to be on a team, and I did that, I suppose, from 1981. I left Spiddle in 1981 until, I suppose, 1989. And then, so that was wonderful. We met the great and the good, the Endith McDonoughs and the John O'Donoghues, and you know, all the people who were kind of well known at the time. John Moriarty, they came giving talks, and that was lovely. And I also got involved in a lot of other things. But then in 1986, one of our sisters in the house where I lived got cancer, and she went to the Bristol Cancer Centre, and she came back, and she said it would be wonderful to have something in Ireland rather than have people going to Bristol. So with her, the 3 of us, we began, with the help of Bristol indeed, one of them came over to help us. We set up a cancer centre in Ballyloughlin Road in Galway, Slano, and I worked with that for maybe about 9 years. Now that was the first time that I heard the word environment really, because when I was teaching, we talked about nature, but the word environment really wasn't in then, you know. So in those years now, the late 80s, we began to recycle paper and recycle bottles.
Okay.
So I was getting some clue about it.
Yeah.
Am I talking too much?
No,
Too quickly?
no, not at all. Music. I really would like you to say something about music, because I
Right,
know
okay.
the musical gifts you have, and you know what you've done for music for people hearing that. So I really would like you to
Yeah.
say a bit about it, whatever you'd like to say.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
My father was a traditional Irish musician.
Yeah.
He played the accordion. And so there was always music in the house. And because we had a small house, like when we might be put to bed, we heard everything. And,
Yeah.
you know, at the time, we didn't have a radio in the early days, but like we knew all the songs of the day, as it were, we were able to sing them. And he was into traditional music, but, you know, he used to play at dances. He'd go out on a Sunday night with his accordion strapped to the back of the bike. Could be a wet night,
Okay.
out to play at some hall,
Okay.
you know, of the country. And we all got a chance to do music.
Okay.
The two eldest did the violin, and then Kevin did the piano accordion, and I got a chance to do piano at school. Now, we didn't have a piano at home. I used to be coming home practicing on the table,
Okay.
and so I did that maybe for a year, but then I went into 6th class. We had to do this exam at the time, primary cert, and the nun wouldn't let me out to lessons during the day.
Okay.
So then when I went to Tormakiti, we had to do music again, so I was doing piano again, so I did 1 or 2 exams there. So I did up to, after I joined the sisters, and I continued with piano, so I did up to grade 8. And just as I was leaving for Spiddal, somebody came to Galway teaching harp, Irish harp.
Okay.
So I did that and I loved it. To this day I love the harp. And so as soon as I went to Spiddal, Sister Anthony got me good to her, got a harp, and I began teaching music, you know, after school in the evenings. And like gradually some of the children got harps, and we had groups of harps and things. And I got to, right after going to Spiddal, Sister Anthony had been doing the parish choir, and she said, like, over to you now. Now, I really hadn't any experience, but I did what I could, like from my own days in the choir, and I enjoyed that. And then came Sean O'Riordan's Mass. I happened to be down in Cork with my mother, and a sister was home from America, and we were looking for a mass on a Sunday morning as we were travelling, and we saw a crowd going up to this little church. So we parked the car, and of course it was Cooley, and it was Sean O'Riordan, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven out with the music. Came back to Spiddal, and we began learning it, and I suppose that was the start of a great interest in church music. For years I went off and did a church music course every summer.
Was that in Maynooth? Was that the one that did in
Well,
Maynooth? No, maybe
in
not.
recent years it was Maynooth. In early years it used to be anywhere.
Anywhere.
Like
okay.
anywhere, the Augustinians down south near Waterford. I can't remember the names of the places.
I know.
You know, but I think in latter years it was Maynooth. You know, the church music thing.
Yeah. There's a whole week, I think, around that.
I kept doing that really until then I went away. When I had been teaching in Spiddal, I took a year off and I went to a place called Mount Oliver in Dundalk, which was a wonderful year. I suppose it was the beginning, I think, of the rest of my life. And then summertime, used to have a summer school there, and it often clashed with the church music. So I went to Dundalk instead of to the church music. And again, when I came back in then from Spiddal into Galway, I thought, well, that's the end now of my music. And the next thing is the choir master in the parish where I lived, he just walked out one Sunday morning. Something annoyed him, and he just took his books down, like after playing the opening hymn, and closed down the organ and walked out. And then a week or two later, the parish priest asked, you know, would I do it? And I said, well, I'm really not an organist. So a friend of mine, she was a past pupil and a friend, she played the organ and I did the choir. And we did that, I suppose, for 5 or 6 years again until I left, you know, Galway. Then I gave away all my music books. I thought, that's it, no more. And I was in Ballinrobe when I came back for a year or two, and I had no music. But here in Killasser, it was kind of by accident that I became involved in.
It's a great story, that story, how you became. Do you want to tell the story how you became involved in the
I did. Wait, I see.
It's to do with a mission, I think.
deliberately kept
Yeah,
away
I
from.
know, yeah.
I used to. I often didn't go even to mass in Killester.
Yeah.
I went elsewhere
I know,
because
I
I
know.
didn't want to be. I had met Marie Hork on
Yeah.
the street a few times, and she
Yeah.
said, "Oh, won't you join the choir?" I said, "No,
Yeah.
no, Marie. You know, I've done enough of it," and I kept away from
I know.
what was going
I
on.
know,
And then it was a funeral mass,
yeah.
and the person that they would have called on to play the organ on that morning, well, she couldn't. There were various reasons why she
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I was asked the last minute would I
Good.
play, and I did.
Yeah.
And then what was it after that?
They wanted you. They were so happy with what you did. I think they kind of begged you. I think and asked you. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think they did. Yeah.
You see,
yeah.
there was a very good. Is she O'Hara? A lovely young woman. She was going to
O'Hara.
college.
O'Hara, that's right. I
Well,
can't think of her first
Yeah,
name.
she's up the other side of the parish.
She's Knox.
Knox.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I
yeah.
hope she doesn't mind that I can't remember her name.
No,
She's
I
not-
can't remember her
I'm happy
name,
that-
and she'd be more annoyed at me. I think. You know.
Anyway,
But no,
I'm more elderly now than
I
you
know,
for the
I
job,
know.
so I'll get away with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
she did the organ at
Yeah,
weekends
yeah,
when she was
yeah.
home from college.
Yeah,
But if anything happened during the week
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
So I used to do it then. So I got
Yeah.
into it in that way. And
yeah.
I was from, I suppose, I'm trying to think when, I certainly was 15 or 16 years doing the choir.
Yeah, and I think you taught some young girls as well the harp around the parish. And that, there was that as
Then
well,
again,
yeah,
I thought when I left Spiddle I was finished teaching harp,
yeah,
but people followed me to Galway and I taught some harp in
yeah,
Galway.
Yeah,
And then I came to Bananrobe and one of the teachers asked me to teach her daughter
Yeah.
harp, did a bit of harp in Bananrobe. Said Killester, nobody is going to want to know about harp.
yeah,
And then these lovely 4 young women,
Yes.
they were in school at the time,
yeah.
they had wanted to have a little group.
Cool, yeah.
And they were entered for various competitions. So I kind of, now they were singing before I ever met them. So
Okay, yeah.
I didn't teach them singing.
Okay,
They were musicians.
yeah,
And so I taught 2 of them the harp.
yeah.
So they had whatever they called themselves, and they won the All Ireland.
Yeah, Lasser, they call themselves
Lasser,
Lasser,
they
after
did.
St.
Lasser, yeah, after St.
that's
Lasser.
right, yeah,
And
yeah.
they did, and they went on, and they played at weddings, you know,
They still do,
functions for
they
years.
still do, they still
But
do.
they still do it.
They did it at a wedding not that long ago.
Did they?
here.
Yeah, because
And
they're spread out now.
Yeah,
you see,
they're not all together.
No,
yeah,
they're not.
Yeah,
The 3 of them are right around this area, but
yeah.
Linda's still in
Cork.
down south in Cork,
That's right.
you know.
That's right.
So that's my, and then when, I did do it up until COVID came, didn't I, Father
Yeah,
John?
you did.
And I felt,
You did.
look, now,
Yeah.
you know, because I had said I'd do it, get out of it, because I felt
Yeah.
as long as I'm around,
Yeah.
nobody else will come forward.
No, they won't.
And now they
either.
have come forward.
There is somebody,
Yeah.
well, and there's a few may do it, but there's one person
There
definitely.
is.
Yeah,
And you had a lovely choir, I believe, on Christmas
We
Day.
had Deborah Convey.
Yeah,
Deborah
yeah,
playing the
yeah.
organ. And her daughter played the guitar, believe it or not.
Oh, isn't that
Small
lovely?
little child of maybe about 8
Isn't
or 9.
that lovely?
Yeah,
That's
so,
lovely.
so it was lovely to see that.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was. It was lovely to see it.
So, so I've given all my church music
I
stuff
know.
away now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, well, the other question then, of course, obviously is about the environment that I'd like
Yeah.
to, because I know you've
Yeah.
been very involved in that, have a huge interest in that, and well, I'd like you to talk about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as I said,
Yeah.
I heard the word
Yeah.
environment for the
Yeah.
first time
Yeah.
when I began working with. I heard it from the Bristol Cancer Centre.
Yeah.
And that to me at the time was like recycling glass, paper.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah.
it meant. I didn't know anything else, even
Yeah.
though I had taught biology.
Okay.
We didn't talk about environment.
Yeah.
But then in 1996, between having left Galway and before I came to this side of the country, I went out to my sister in New York.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I had heard of this place in New Jersey, Genesis Farm, and I availed of a 2-week course there. Now that changed my life.
Okay.
In every aspect of my life, it changed my life. So I was 2 weeks there. And I suppose what happened there was that I heard the story of the universe told for the first time.
Okay.
Now, what did I know about it? I figured all right that it wasn't the Bible story. That's
Yeah.
not how things began. But and from teaching science, I knew a bit about, I can't think of the name, but you know, going back that humans weren't planked down on this planet.
Evolution. Yeah,
Evolution. That's
yeah, I
see,
suppose,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm showing my age. I'm forgetting words.
Yeah.
And but the story of the universe, it just knocked me sideways. It was so powerful, like how, 14.9 billion years ago, just something startling happened. And that was the beginning. And then of the emergence of the stars a billion years later. And then 5 billion years ago, the planets, the sun and the planets. And then planet Earth being the one planet, just the exact right distance from the sun to have life in it. And then the emergence of life, water and land, and life on Earth in the water, it's coming out of the water to land. Bacteria, the first, the things that we hate to hear talked about now, bacteria were the first living things that came into existence, and we need them, like we can't live without them. And then the emergence of all of life, of reptiles and of birds and of trees and flowers and plants and mammals, and then I won't say finally the human. We're not around that long at all. We came in, but because I thought we were the last species, but an American scientist told me that no, that the polar bear came after us. And of course the polar bear might be gone ahead of us because of the ice caps. But that story, it just had a huge effect on me. It was like the beginning of the rest of my life. So I came back then and I said, well, what will I do? How will I live now? How will I impart this? How will I tell others about it? Now it took me a while. I was going up and down borings and cul-de-sacs, to find my way. I thought ideally I'd love to do it with adults, but I had a few attempts that weren't very successful. And at the time now, I'd come out to live on my own. And it was like pure coincidence that I got to live in Killasser. I lived in Foxford in a mobile home for 1.5 years, and I was looking for some place to settle down and from where to work. And Sister Márín Lally, one of our sisters in Swinford.
I knew Márín.
She's one wonderful community worker. So she brought me to come up and meet Tom Hennigan. And as it happened at the time, Tom, the Heritage Centre and the house beside it was empty.
It was vacant,
It was vacant. So that was the year 2000. So I moved in on St. Patrick's Day 2000 into Tom Hennigan's place. Now that was a big change. And then still I hadn't found my way about how to tell the story. And now and again Tom would be, he might have to go someplace and he'd ask me if a crowd came, would I take them around, or if people came. And of course I knew as much about heritage Irish as he did, because I grew up with all of the things that are in Tom's Heritage Centre. And this woman, I don't know what I said about environment and about the earth and the planet. And this woman, God, she died since, Elizabeth Siren from Kilocron School. She said, Márín, would you ever come to the children and talk to them? Of course I said I will, not knowing what I was going to do. I didn't want really to be going to schools, but to make a long story short, I went to her school. And I began thinking of how will I make this nice for children. So I using all the old Irish songs, like Hi Diddle Dum and Cut the Sawar, all those Irish songs that we learned at school. I used them and put English words to them for every species. So I had like something like 16 or 17 of little Irish songs to correspond with all the different species. And it took me a while. But I began doing the story of the universe for children and getting them to do a little play, and writing out the story for them. And then, God bless Sharon Cameron, she's the environment officer in Mayo County Council, and we kind of we kind of made a deal. Let's put it this way: she was trying to promote the green schools at the time. I was promoting the story of the universe. And because I did the initial talk on green schools, she got financial help for me to do all my travelling around. And that went on for years, so I have a lot to be grateful to Mayo County Council for, and Mary Ford as well. So that's it. I was doing the story of the universe, and then after a while Sharon said, now could we vary it a bit? So I just changed it slightly to the food we eat, called it that. And we used to make soup on the first day.
I remember you making the soup here in the pan at church.
That's right.
That's
right. And you see, you can go from food, like where did the food come from? You can go way back. You can go back to the beginning, rather than beginning at the beginning of the story. You can go back from the present day back to the beginning. And so I still brought it in, and we did a bit of organic growing and little things like that. So I was doing that, I suppose, till 2015.
Okay.
But I certainly did about maybe 140 schools in Mayo. I did a few in Galway,
Okay.
did a few in Sligo, one in Roscommon, and I even did it in Florida.
Oh.
Our sisters were working in a school
Okay.
there at the time, and I did the story of the universe there.
Okay.
So that's like that. And
Yeah.
how do I put it now about nature? That's why I love Kilasser, because it
Okay.
came to me at the right time in my life. You know, I was ready to be immersed in nature
Yeah.
for its own sake.
Yeah.
Like, I could no longer. People said, "Oh, why did you kill the slugs?" I couldn't kill a slug.
No.
Couldn't. Now I just said, like, I share DNA with them.
Okay.
They're as important as I am, and I
Okay.
do believe that every creature on the planet is as important as we are.
Okay.
I don't believe, and I don't mind where I say this, I do not believe this thing of we having souls.
Yeah.
There's a woman, Mary Oliver, she's an American poet, she died some years back, but she
I've
has,
heard of her.
I have a lovely poem,
Yeah.
What is Soul, Who Has It? Now she uses all American species, of course I can't remember their names, but
Yeah.
like, why would I have it? And why wouldn't the butterfly have it?
Yeah.
Why would I have it? Why wouldn't the rabbits have it?
Yeah.
That look after their young or whatever.
Yeah.
So so that my faith,
Mm.
my faith has changed totally
Okay.
because of my return to nature, as it were,
Okay.
and that
Okay.
has happened in Kilasser.
Okay. Yeah.
And
And I know you've been very happy here as well. You were
Yes,
saying that
yeah.
you've been very happy
Yeah.
in Kilasser.
oh, I have there
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
I kind of I just say a word about my faith.
Yeah.
You know, I believed, everything I was taught, kind of, about there's a God up there, but I mean, all of that has gone. I believe in a great mystery.
Okay.
I don't believe in the God that we were taught about in school
Okay.
or any of that kind of thing, but I certainly believe there's a mystery beyond all our understanding. You can call it mystery, I can call it the Great Spirit. The native peoples have lovely words for it, and I
Okay.
believe that spirit is present in every species on the planet,
Okay.
from a blade of grass to an elephant to whatever. I do believe it's there, and so that's why I respect nature. I feel at home with nature, and that's why I loved Kilasser, because I was close to it, and we'd have hares out on the lawn, and I'd see the fox running through the hedge, and I saw calves being born, and I just saw nature, and coming out in the morning, listening to birds and looking at the sunset, kept me, how do I put it, kept that wonderful faith alive in me,
Of course.
and if I might say a word about church, because we began here this morning talking about the synod.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to be around for it. I'm in my 84th year,
I know.
and but I think it's going to be marvellous for the church if it happens. I think really that it needs to begin again and to be more about people rather than levels of hierarchy.
Okay.
And it has begun in Rome with the Pope, so it has to be
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'll be around to see it flourish. I don't think I will, but I think it's wonderful,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that part of it will be welcoming the natural world, or being more loving and more accepting of the natural
Oh.
world.
Oh, that's great. And of course, one final thing then, Maureen, and thanks for all that you shared with us here. And people, as you know, people from the parish will watch what we have on YouTube, and they'll definitely, because they know you and they have a lot of time for you, they will watch this. So have you any message for them now, maybe just at the very end of our little interview? Have you any message for them, anything to say to them?
Well, first of all, I'd like
Yeah.
to say thank you
Okay.
to the people of Kilasser that accepted me, so wonderfully among
Okay.
you, to my neighbours, to my friends, to the people in the choir over the years, and to all the people I've met. I can literally even Swinford, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking I used to shop in
I
Swinford,
remember, seeing
know,
you there, yeah.
and to the people kind of, to everybody, thank you for accepting me and allowing me to be part of the parish for all those years.
Yeah.
And I'd just say, look again at what's around you, and learn maybe to to look at it with new eyes,
Okay.
kind of, and to see the beauty that's in everything, and the just besides maybe the uses of nature, to look at
Yeah.
whatever it is we call God, the Great
Yeah.
Spirit, is
Yeah.
present in everything.
Yeah.
I would just, they'd be the two things really, thanks
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and think of me when we're out,
We certainly will.
when you're out walking.
We certainly will, Márín.
Yeah, so thanks,
Yeah.
Father John, thank
Yeah.
you.
And thank you, Márín, because,
Yeah.
well, I know you played the organ and you were involved with the music, and it has meant a lot to people, you know, all that over the years. It's meant a lot. And for liturgy, just speaking myself as the priest, just to have music and to have lovely music, and we used to have some lovely Ori of the stuff and everything.
Oh,
Beautiful
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
and
love Irish
they were
stuff, yeah.
fantastic
Yeah,
things, you know.
yeah.
So I hope that continues. And look, thanks. And we hope that this year, 2023, will be good for you and good for us all.
Well, thank you
And,
very much,
and,
Father John. Thank you.
And thanks for doing this as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Márín. Thank you. That's great.